In 2003, the Institute of the Blessed Virgin Mary Loreto, in seeking to enhance its global presence and impact, established a non-governmental organization, or NGO, to work with the United Nations in New York on issues pertinent to the mission of the IBVM. The IBVM at the UN represents the interests of the global IBVM network, including its regions on 6 continents, associates, current students, teachers, parents, communities, and the more than 1 million alumni of IBVM schools. The work our NGO has done in the past 10 years with the UN's Department of Public Information, or DPI, has assisted IBVM in its various missions throughout the world. While the daily responsibility of working as the IBVM's representative to the United Nations falls to just one person, in reality, the single representative has the backing and support of the entire IBVM network. The general leadership of the IBVM, which appoints the representative to the UN, as well as appointing the NGO's advisory committee, is the umbrella under which both the international network and the NGO fall. In turn, the advisory committee supports and advises the representative while monitoring the progress of the NGO's work plan. In addition, contact persons for the NGO provide critical links for communication between the representative in New York and the entire IBVM network. Finally, the NGO representative serves as the face of the organization at the UN, engaging with civil society, transmitting information between the UN and the network, and running the New York office. Effective communication between the New York office and the rest of the network is key. The communication infrastructure of our NGO allows contact persons within the network, along with schools, the Justice and Spirituality Center, and the development and international offices, to get updates and other information from the NGO representative. This information is disseminated to local networks, sponsored ministries, and NGO partners as appropriate. Information also flows back to the NGO representative from the IBVM network on news, initiatives, and projects in the local provinces, as well as national conferences related to UN issues. The representative is also tasked with gathering information that will help the IBVM network to locate resources for IBVM initiatives. Within the network, justice issues identified at the local level can progress to the national level. Such progression would include formation and the initiation of advocacy possibilities. Relevant aspects of each issue can be handled by the representative as she sends out information or makes requests in response to IBVM contact persons based on the needs of our network. It's in this way that the representative can connect justice issues at the local level to those on the global level.
I see from all of you the future leaders of tomorrow. You may become a scientist, a politician, actors or actresses, diplomats, business persons, musicians. So, whole world is yours now.
While working with the UN, the NGO has focused its attention on the following areas: the Millennium Development Goals, gender equity, human trafficking, HIV and AIDS, and innovative financing for development and environmental goals. Each of these areas fall within the organization's primary interests of human rights and environmental stewardship, and our work for systemic change in the status of women and girls, especially in regards to economic and social inequality, as well as our desire to understand the factors underlying systemic injustice.
In the year 2000, the world looked forward to a new millennium, not only with fireworks, but with promises. Promises we would see an end to absolute poverty, to avoidable disease, oppression of women, and children without education. And for once, promises were backed with targets, the Millennium Development Goals.
To accomplish our objectives on the ground, the IBVM representative attends United Nations meetings as a member of civil society and works with NGO commissions, committees, and working groups. Panel discussions, report launches, briefings, and special events pertaining to the work of the Department of Public Information, the Social and Economic Council, or ECOSOC, and meetings of the General Assembly working groups are an important part of our work. One of the NGO's committees is the Working Group on Girls. This advocacy task force researches and authors intervention on violence against women and girls, and conducts advocacy visits to missions of member states. As a member of the Committee to Stop Trafficking in Humans, the IBVM's NGO focuses on the sexual and labor exploitation of children and its attendant issues. We also led a highly successful workshop on the prevention of human trafficking for the UN's Commission on the Status of Women. As part of the Commission on Social Development, the NGO writes and researches interventions geared towards social development. Past activities have included breakfast meetings with ambassadors to the United Nations, which present opportunities to advocate on behalf of IBVM's interests. The organization cooperates with other religious NGOs involved in the interfaith dimension of the United Nations. We participate in RUN, or Religious at the UN, and have facilitated advocacy workshops for members of RUN, as well as planning a reflection day for RUN members. We have been a part of the NGO Committee on Financing for Development since its inception, when the need for adequate financing of the Millennium Development Goals was addressed. Working as the IBVM UN representative entails engaging with civil society within the United Nations system, as well as communicating with and educating IBVM members in the two major IBVM network languages, English and Spanish. Since its inception, IBVM's NGO has had 5 representatives living and working in New York. Ibvm Hunter, Doreen Kirby, Marilla D'Souza, Ann Kelly, and Cecilia O'Dwyer have each served as individual representatives for the organization. Each representative has brought a unique skill set and past experiences to bear during her time as the NGO's representative to the UN. The first representative from Canada, Ibvm Hunter, explained that in 2003, the primary tasks of the newly formed NGO were to create greater awareness of the NGO within our network, to explain its value to IBVM, and to elucidate the role the newly created NGO would play in the larger IBVM system. Ibvm gave explanatory workshops about the United Nations in a number of countries including Canada, Mauritius, South Africa, Ireland, England, and Spain. She worked diligently to elaborate on the role and value of a relationship with the UN, what the UN does, such as work with governments, and what it does not do, such as provide funding. Ibvm explained the advocacy role of the UN and hosted about 45 visitors to the NGO in New York. She also worked to create contacts for the NGO, including the ambassador to the UN mission to Kenya, who was a past pupil, and the ambassador to East Timor, thanks to an IBVM colleague. After Ibvm's time in New York, another Canadian, Doreen Kirby, took up the mantle of the mission. She also remembers the beginnings of IBVM's NGO and the initial meetings with religious congregations already involved with the UN as NGOs. For Doreen, the NGO was an extension of the IBVM's various ministries worldwide. Devoted to improving the lives of people, one of its main challenges was to connect good works done locally with the work done at the UN. No small task, given many members' unfamiliarity with the UN process. Doreen was consistently impressed with the work achieved by the United Nations, and she felt it imperative to educate our membership on the interconnectedness of issues at the UN and within the network, as well as to facilitate more active participation of IBVM members in the NGO. Doreen believed in the value of internships to the organization and hoped for local UN representatives to further connect the NGO to international offices. Marilla D'Souza from India served as IBVM's 3rd representative. For Marilla, a tough part of her job was deciding which of the many excellent daily opportunities to attend at the UN and NGO committee meetings. She worked fearlessly, interacting with delegates as part of advocacy groups, and made it a priority to disseminate and share information. She found a lot of good hard copies of informative materials, so important to parts of the world where access to technology is limited. During her NGO tenure, she felt the need for another person in New York. Having interns would help with the daily work at the office and create a body of persons with experience at the UN, experience which in turn would be helpful with the work performed at the local level. The NGO's 4th representative, Ann Kelly, hailed from Australia. Ann spent 3 years working to promote IBVM at the United Nations. During her stay in New York, she leaned on her time working in Uganda with South Sudanese refugees and in the Democratic Republic of Timor-Leste post-independence. Ann came to realize through daily interactions that, quote, girls hold the key to development. educate a girl for longer, care for her health, protect her from violence, human trafficking, early marriage, female genital mutilation, and other forms of abuse, and the entire community benefits. Anne felt proud of the human rights victories achieved during those years, including the creation of the Day of the Girl in October 2012, the resolution condemning FGM by the General Assembly in December 2012, and the UN's effort to involve global consulting in drafting the new post-2015 development agenda. During this time, interns began to work with the NGO. Claire Condon from Australia, Cecilia O'Dwyer from Spain, and Pat Hanvey from Zambia all served as interns. Not only did the interns gain valuable experience with the United Nations, but they also helped with the day-to-day running of the organization. It was also during Anne's term that the NGO underwent two important changes: the establishment of the NGO's Advisory Committee and a special focus of UN contacts to facilitate communication between the representative and the IBVM at large. Cecilia O'Dwyer is our network's current representative. She arrived in New York in May 2013. At the time of her arrival, the UN received near constant media attention for its inability to achieve consensus in the Security Council, which led Cecilia to view the UN in terms of a human family trying to organize itself so that each member might live with dignity in a peaceful, prosperous, and sustainable world in spite of the difficulties involved. In the slow work of creating this world, there were moments of clarity during which world leaders came together for the benefit of all. Since the beginning of this century in particular, one such occasion was that of the Millennium Declaration, which gave rise to the Millennium Development Goals, which mobilized the international community around concise, measurable objectives. The IBVM made a commitment to working on the MDGs, and has done so in a variety of ways throughout the world in our diverse ministries. Regardless of success, the Millennium Development Goals have led to increased awareness of our reality as a human family. Cecilia has seen an increased willingness by the UN to include civil society as a source of valuable and complementary knowledge, experience, and expertise in dealing with issues. In fact, the United Nations is currently imploring the global community to participate in information gathering for debate in continuing the post-2015 agenda. Among those voices that still need to be heard are the elderly, the young, and the vulnerable. After 10 successful years in New York, it's an exciting time for the IBVM NGO. The NGO has been commended for its annual reports to the United Nations Department of Public Information, and members of the network have attended and conducted workshops at the annual DPI conferences. The NGO has established good working relationships with a number of the local UN agencies that overlap in our international communities, as cooperations with these agencies serves to further enhance the network's impact on relevant issues. In addition, the rollout of the next set of development goals, the post-2015 development agenda, has created the potential for further positive impact in the IBVM regions. For IBVM, having a representative at the United Nations provides an unparalleled opportunity to energize our vast network while promoting the Loretto's mission of social justice, human rights, and environmental stewardship through advocacy.